Right, we're going to talk a bit about pro theory now, again, and what it means, why it's a theory of everything, and a few other things. So if you've ever read another theory of everything, it's usually physics based, as I've said before in another video. And then this is the problem really, because a theory of everything means everything. It means the clothes I'm wearing, the body I'm in, the room I'm in, the sky, the earth, every single thing. It doesn't just mean complicated physics, subatomic particles, although that must come into it as well. And as I've said before, the way I wrote pro theory was discovering protons, neutrons and electrons, realising that they're negative, positive and neutral energy basically, energy meaning a form of change. And then I basically thought, brilliant, I can learn physics now, given 20 years of hard study maybe I'll be good enough to learn physics or understand physics at the end of the day, or maybe even at the end of my life, I don't know. That's the way I was thinking at the time. And then I started reading the Oxford Dictionary of Physics, for example, looking up these three potentials, thinking, right, where can I find it? I kept reading these singularities all the time, such as we're not sure about so-and-so, the Big Bang, whether it happened or whether it didn't happen, and all these other things, loads and loads of singularities. And I thought, well, I must be missing something really. There must be something that I just don't understand, or that I've read wrong, something. And it was only after sort of about six or 8 months of reading physics constantly, and mathematics and stuff, as in the clay math problems and stuff, the millennium problems, that I realised that scientists and physicists and mathematics proponents and everything don't really know this in the sense that I do. Certainly don't accept it in the sense that I do. And that's when I wrote this, and I eventually realised that what I had was a theory of everything, basically, in my opinion anyway. And I really don't see that we can get any more accurate, quote unquote, than this, really. The whole point, or points plural, of pro theory is leaving nothing unanswered. So there's no room for argument. That's the point of pro theory, is to leave nothing, no leeway, no room for manoeuvre. I find this difficult to say because people think it's me. I think it may come across to a lot of people as though I sort of talk about these three things on camera and on my essays and everything, and then I go home thinking, well, I've tricked all them, I really think I'm the cleverest person in the world, you know, which isn't true at all, because I actually live by this theory. So I think of myself as three ways as well, three potentials. So I'm clever, I'm not clever, plus neutral. Am I an expert in physics? I am and I'm not, plus neutral, according to the theory of everything. It's about context, this. Okay? The theory of everything is a context in which we view the world. It's like putting on a pair of glasses and seeing everything at once. When you take them off, you can live a real life, okay? As I've said before, I don't introduce myself, hello, I'm pro, I'm not pro, plus neutral, pleased to meet you. Because, as I've said before again, that's ridiculous. But in the context of a theory of everything, I think it is important, extremely important, in fact, to know exactly what the universe can and does do and how it behaves, once and for all, really, I suppose. Because people are always arguing these opposite points. One person will say one thing, and one person will disagree with them, which usually means provide an opposite answer. And they'll debate, and they'll say, how debate normally goes is, I make a statement such as, pro theory is a theory of everything, full stop, singular. And I say, because such and such, such and such. And then the other person says, it isn't a theory of everything, because such and such, such and such. And then we provide evidence. Well, if you look at so-and-so theory, then you see that this is this and this is this. It's just not good enough. And the thing with pro theory is it answers three things at once. It doesn't say, this is a singular premise that I'm starting from, therefore you have an opposite answer to provide for me. It just means I provide three answers simultaneously. And when I do that, you see, when I provide negative, positive and neutral potentials to everything, then we have everything answered at once, so to speak. And that's the big problem for me to communicate, really. I do find it really difficult to talk about it and stuff, and people say, oh, my mate's watched your videos or something and he thinks you're a nutter. those 1, 2, 3 ones and stuff, all the B's 1, 2, 3, you sound like a right idiot. I'm like, well, fair enough, you know. I don't judge people and stuff. I try not to judge people anyway. I think fair enough. I'd probably think the same if I didn't write Pro Theory, if I hadn't written Pro Theory. But having written it, I understand fully that that's the only way to answer everything at once, is to provide 3 potentials and 3 answers, because there are 3 potentials for everything. Okay, now I'm a bit short on examples on this one actually, but people think I'm winding them up when I say things like, oh, you can cut me down the centre and stuff. I've been debating this on another forum recently, because I pulled up a thread on Google that was basically asking if Pro Theory was a joke and ProTheory.com was a joke. And I responded, as I usually do, and it got to the point where there was nothing left to say really, and we had to change the topic because there was no leeway there for argument and no room for manoeuvre basically. And that's about what it comes down to. I mean, how much room did you think a theory of everything was really going to give you? That's the thing, you see. I mean, I live by this as well. I don't expect everybody to live by this, and it's not like you can't count or you can't do this, you can't do that. It's like you can, and neutral simultaneously. If you look at all physics theories, they're all on some kind of singularity, and people spend their whole lives sort of looking at the Big Bang and trying to reverse it to the first second after the Big Bang. These enormous energies that happened after the Big Bang and the universe was created, you know. But how can something that changes all the time be created in a singular sense and be destroyed in a singular sense, as in the Big Bang and the Big Crunch? The Big Bang being the expansion of the universe from a singularity, the Big Crunch being the opposite, where it reverses back to the singularity. Now how can that be true if all we do is live in change? And that's the point, again, it's adapting to change. That's the only way to provide an accurate and truthful theory of everything, okay? Is to adapt to change. Because, as I say, Darwin said, only those who adapt to change survive, and that's what Pro Theory does. People say to me sometimes, it seems like you're changing your argument every second, and I am doing. Although I'm keeping within the same 3 parameters, if you like. But I do adapt my argument to everything. I do add the opposite plus neutral, and that's because the theory of everything is abstract, really. I'm not suggesting it'll have any practical purpose, particularly. As I've said before, I'm not an engineer, and it's a good job I don't build bridges because they'd never get built. I'd always be considering the other possibility, this and that, this and that. But it's extremely important to realise how literally this has to be taken to be understood properly. And I didn't think anybody would understand it, apart from me, to be honest, but I thought I'd try, and I've actually met people online who haven't understood it. One person said to me on a comment on Pro Theory, he said they'd watched the Riemann hypothesis video. He said they thought it was pretty ridiculous at the time, and then they were interested enough to read the website, my website, ProTheory.com, and then they started to understand it, you see. And it's actually true, it's not as mind-blowing as people think, because people just aren't used to thinking in 3s, I suppose. They're used to thinking in 1s or opposites at the very most, really. And then when I introduce neutrality, people say, well, you can't define neutrality because it's neutral. By its very nature, it doesn't exist. Which is a fair point, but that still leaves me the option to say, well, it does exist, doesn't exist, plus neutral. And on and on and on. And it always loops, you see, in that sense. Whenever I provide 3 answers, it loops. Then it goes back to the 1, then I add the opposite, then I add the neutral, and we're back to square 1 again, as such, you see, and it loops. And that's, I don't know, this is extremely important, I think. It's about time humans knew what they're made of and what happens in the universe without sort of following these singularities that are never really going to explain the universe properly for you. A singularity is only any good until you get an opposite answer. So if I said this is the theory of everything and there's one contrary instance, then that instantly proves Pro Theory wrong. As singular, you see, it proves the opposite to Pro Theory, I suppose. But if I've already provided the opposite and neutral potentials within Pro Theory at the very beginning, so I've already provided negative, positive and neutral potentials, then how can it possibly be wrong, or right, or neutral, singularly? That's the point, because it's all 3 simultaneously. And those are the points of Pro Theory, I suppose. I'm a bit off topic, so I'll just keep going and see what I can talk about today and see how I get on.